Hi there, Elevated Planet community. This is John Drew here. Today I have the great privilege of interviewing Miguel Mendonca. Miguel has a background in forestry and horticulture, journalism, geography and history, social science and environment. He's worked internationally as a researcher, writer and campaigner on renewable energy before becoming an independent researcher. He then published books on a range of themes, including ETs, hybrids, disclosure, the social history of the UFO topic, wisdom, and the art of creativity. He now makes music full-time as Sokomiru and has just released his second album titled Into Galactic.
Why on earth would humans need weapons? Why would we need fences? Why would we need borders and boundaries? Why would we need to protect ourselves from one another? All these things are crazy to me. And I've had multiple experience with angels and ghosts. I've had near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, the sort of lucid dreaming stuff, all kinds of things that have given me the sense that human consciousness, particularly in the West, is very boxed in by religion and science as the two great explanatory mechanisms for us dealing with this, the fact that we're conscious and conscious of all of this stimuli, all of this stuff, and there's no two people who experience it the same way. You know, we're pretty good at fear and paranoia and distrust and bigotry and injustice and inequality and feeling this permanent sense of threat from other people and that we're in competition with them. And of course, the entire economy builds this in. I was an environmentalist for a decade. I could not believe the levels of hypocrisy and backbiting. And it just feels like, I don't want to curse on this thing, but we are so screwed up. Competition is fine up to a point, can definitely drive innovation. It can produce a lot of great stuff, but not if it is about inequality, right? If we were competing to be as benevolent as possible, that's a competition I can make sense of in a way, even though there's maybe an internal paradox. So yeah, I just, for my whole life, I have been studying humans, living among the humans. I had a sighting, a craft encounter in 2009, which was intense and powerful. You know, I see this thing that looks like a satellite, except that it's just getting bigger and bigger and brighter and brighter. And then it shrinks back down, carries on, then it expands again, and then just like a bullet. And these things do change you. And then in that process, talking to the people who self-identify as hybrids, in that first book, I was just struck by how all of it felt so familiar and close to home, and in some cases near the knuckle, to the point where I really was asking myself serious questions about, could it be possible that I'm actually not from here? Like, I really understand now what the hybrids and other folks talk about when they talk about how dense it is on this planet.
So you talk about the density that's on the planet. Now, the problem for us is that, you know, when we live our lives within the density, we don't even realize it's dense. And therefore, you've got no sense of perspective.
I don't watch the news, but it's simply because I can't handle it. I'm just too sensitive. That is the reality. It can block you in a lot of other ways. It can start to drain the color out of life. You, it seems to me, are somebody who may have gone through something similar and has come to a place where you've found a means to survive, to thrive, to be happy, and to contribute to more joy, more happiness for people, and to expand people. And that's the opposite of the black holes that people get sucked into, because it absorbs all light. That's what happens in a black hole, as we understand it, at least. So to me, the most important thing I can do is to spend time in light and joy and beauty through art. That is where I find levity, humanity, humility. It's where you can set aside ego, and it is more expanding and it's more connecting. I think if I was to give any human being of any age 2 pieces of advice for any kind of happiness, it would be to spend time in nature and to be creative. Anything that you can do in these regards, I think, can help you to be more balanced.
And it's interesting, like in terms of getting in touch with nature, that's something that keeps coming through to me as well. But also was the importance of actually connecting with nature, literally feet on the ground, touching nature, hug a tree. It is a deeper connection. The idea is the earth energy coming through you. And the Gaia, Mother Earth, the living, breathing planet, is there providing you with kind of energy that helps you to be balanced. How do you feel about your incarnation here on the planet and your reason for being here?
Well, sometimes it feels like a crazy error or a bet or something. You know, the image that I have is that I was at some bar on some planet. I mean, picture the cantina scene in Star Wars, right? I think we all kind of go there. And I imagine having a drink with some being from somewhere, and we're swapping just crazy stories of places we've been. And he just, you know, at one point he just leans back and he said, buddy, I can top anything. I can top any story. If you want nuts, if you want polarity, if you want intense, there's only one place to go. And we'll meet back here in 100 years and you tell me how that went down. And I'm like, I'm game, I'm there. And I feel like that's what's going on. I do certainly believe that that's how it works, that there is a level of intention in our incarnations, that we do have some sovereignty, some agency, some awareness of at least the experience we're looking for. But I do not feel trapped here, put it that way. I feel like I can come and go as I please. I can do what I like because I self-identify as a wanderer. I just feel like I go where my curiosity takes me. And this is a pretty curious place. You know, there's that line in New York, New York, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Right. You know, that suddenly comes to mind. And actually from the scene in As Good As It Gets, where Jack Nicholson is putting the dog down the garbage chute and saying that to the dog. I mean, you'll find things here that will, I mean, the kindness in people every day, at some point I'll get misty or teary by just some act of kindness. I witnessed somewhere in the world. And I just think that the best of humanity is an absolutely awe-inspiring thing. The humor that people have, I mean, that is how I survive, you know, art and humor. And then, of course, I discovered Monty Python when I was like 13, something like that. And myself and one other kid in school had seen it. And the next morning we came in and we're like, oh my God, did you see that show last night? It was so mind-blowing because these people were messing with reality in the most incredible way and finding the absurdities of life. And there was something of the naughty schoolboy in them. You know, my friends and I we basically spread that among our little group, who were very, very creative. I mean, my friends were some of the most talented people I've ever met to this day. Humor is about caricaturing life. There are things that we inflate and things that we reduce and that we change relationships and perspectives. So I feel like humans are just an innately creative species. And I have heard it said by researchers and experiencers that beings coming here in raw form, if you like, wherever they are from, whatever form they're in, they often comment about how creative humans are and that they appreciate our humor. And that certain people have told me, the beings themselves have a really great sense of humor.
I've heard that.
So it feels like one of those universals. And I feel like, to be honest, it is one of the best tools in our toolkit for coping.
Yeah, I would agree. And the other thing I would say as well, probably one of the reasons why the other beings probably admire our sense of humor is that I think we have a wider sense of a range of emotions, from the depth of the density through to the light and everything in between. And yeah, when you use that in the right way, create humor, you can create all sorts of things. And I do think that, to me, this is a very important part of life, is laughter. The 3 points that we have that Elevated Planet stands for is love, laughter, and lifestyle. It's those 3 things. That's like our little holy trinity. And the point you make about, being touched every day by an act of kindness somewhere in the world where people have been so selfless. And I love that. And again, these are the kind of stories we're filtering in now, because, they're just beautiful to read. You just look at this stuff and it gets you here. You think, wow. Once you start to get away from the density of the stuff that's going on elsewhere on the planet, and you realize these acts of kindness are going on millions of times every single day. I'm encouraged by the fact, say, for instance, on LinkedIn, there are certain channels there that just purely are there to put things that make you happy. This is the sort of stuff that elevates you. You look at it, you feel better in yourself for having experienced that energy. And the more of that stuff we share, then the more elevated we become. It makes us feel kinder. It makes us feel better, because every act of kindness begets an act of kindness, right? It's the ripple. It's the ripple effect of everything going out, builds out, builds out, builds out. Of course, the same thing works with fear as well, right? And that's what we're going to be the antidote for, is just kind of be the ripple master for the positive as opposed to the ripple master for the negative. Everything's a balance, everything is equilibrium, and we want to be a part of that light equilibrium. And I'm so grateful to you for the stuff that you've taught me through the gift of the work that you've put out. And I'm loving the music, and I'd love to be able to feature your music within Elevated Planet as well, to kind of encourage people to research it, to kind of experience it for themselves as well. Now, one of the things that I've been banging a drum about for a long time now is planetary shift. What is your interpretation of what is going on at a planetary level?
Well, I don't know. Again, I don't have the data, not in any first-hand capacity. I mean, I hear many, many, many different interpretations. And during the Meet the Hybrids research, the ascension idea was very hip. So it was ascension, 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 ascension. Everything was frequency and vibration and shifts and dimensions and densities and new earths and all of this stuff. And of course, I don't think anyone anywhere has any kind of proof. I think it's an idea people like, but I've got a problem with people speaking it as fact when, even if some beings have shown up in their room or taken them on board a craft that says, yeah, we're going through the shift at the moment, and your planet is shifting into a higher vibrational frequency, which is the 5th dimension, and those that are ready will shift. Those who are, light enough. I mean, that is the making of a cult right there. I mean, I did a lot of research on cults, read all the top books on it, and that is just kind of cult 101. That is create a heavenly idea, speak it as absolute truth, and say that only the chosen ones will go. And, I know people who've got religion. We all know people who caught religion, and they become absolutists that biblical absolutists that they say every word of the Bible is absolutely true because they want to get into heaven and they want to feel protected. I do believe a lot of it is still fear-based. This place is creeping me out. I want to go to heaven, and heaven is the fifth dimension. And also the fear of death, the fear of pain, the fear of a painful death, all of that thing of losing somebody close to you, and everyone who's lost someone close to them has gone through this, I think. Of course, you ask yourselves, where are they now? I've had a medium come to my home and tell me that dead people that have been close to me are in contact with me. And they give me messages. They say, oh, he's saying this, he's saying this, he's saying this, he's laughing like hell and saying this. I take it with a pinch of salt. I don't know. Some of it was wild in that it makes no sense. Like if he had described that person in any other way, I could have written it off. But he described the guy I knew and he never heard of that person, right? So who knows? There are so many different ways of coming at the idea of the end of life, the afterlife. And people say that, well, the soul is so huge that an aspect of that person that you can relate to still exists and they are on some plane. But the soul is so massive that part of that person, part of the soul is reincarnating. So what is soul energy? Is it just the everything of everything? Is it just the fact that all of existence is energetic, that all existence is conscious, that all of us are fragments of source? In the beginning was source. Everything proceeds from source because source wished to become more. It wished to evolve. And the only way to evolve was to split itself into an infinitude of fragments. And each of those fragments can take a form. It is a fragment of consciousness, essentially, in at least one reading of it. And that can then take form by choice, like me and like you. And here we are. So this is essentially source learning about itself through Socratic dialogue. And there's an audience of people who are listening to this, and they may be taken on their own little journeys. Some people might appreciate it, but everyone is reacting to it. Everybody is being changed by this experience. And every single thing that happens is connected to every other thing that happens. There's no gaps between things. If everything is one big field of energy that resolves itself into different things depending on your sensory equipment and your perceptual apparatus, then there is only one thing that exists, and that's everything. And so what does this mean for the average human? It means that he pays your money, he takes your choice. There's just a frankly endless variety of things to choose from in terms of what you might believe about reality. Now, some are based on experience personally, others are based on the experience and perspectives of others. Personally, for myself, I try to at least recognize that everything I experience is just my experience. Everybody has their own, and they're all interacting. And even if you set aside absolutely all of the cosmic stuff, and when we die, we just rot in the ground, and that's all there is, and all this other stuff is waffle, it's just delusion, it's still a crazy experience to have, to be conscious. And anyone who's ever done psychedelics, I think, has had the experience of meeting themselves, of suddenly seeing their hands. I mean, this thing that people see in movies and cartoons, whatever, yes, your hand's going to leave some phenomenal trails, but I just remember seeing a hand and then it moving and it was absolutely separate to me. And I just thought, my God, this is the most beautiful, incredible thing I've ever seen. And then I started looking down and following it, and then realizing it was attached to me. I was like, oh my God, this is mine. Holy shit. And then I looked across, I was like, oh my God, there's two of them, right? And this is like a rebirth as a human being, as a conscious entity that is also physical. It was like a moment of actual rebirth.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, at least in one reading of it, is going to give you a sort of fresh appreciation of the complexity of life, that we are conscious energy on the one hand, and we have this dense physical matter that is still conscious energy.
Yes.
And it's all us, and here
Yes.
we are, and it's pretty awesome. And there's all these other people doing their thing and interacting. You know, I just enjoy being able to get real with people and take it to that level of setting aside all the human programming. I like to hear from people about, I'm a conscious entity, so my consciousness is connecting with yours through this stuff, through a voice box, a tongue, etc., lungs, language. We're able to find some common language, and we're able to communicate in this time and space, in this moment. And let's just celebrate that. Let's think about that for even 10 seconds, about the miracle of that. Because all the other stuff, you know, I feel like we take too much for granted. I feel like we get hung up on a lot of stuff that is nowhere near as miraculous as the fact that we are conscious, and conscious of being conscious, and able to consciously choose what we do and where we put our time and how we interact and all of those things. And so to me, all of this discussion, all of this cosmic awesomeness, it still resolves down to, what am I as a conscious entity going to do now? What am I going to take responsibility for myself, for other people, and for the world in which we live?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting way of looking at this, and you know, the connections that have happened to make this happen, the billions to one, that this is
and the fact
right
that
now,
fact that how, whatever you believe about the start of our universe, the birth of the universe, whatever, however that came into being, if it was some type of Big Bang inflationary thing, you go right back to that first moment, to the singularity, and you and I were in that singularity together. And all of the things that had to happen, all the ways in which our ancestors survived, all of those things that we had to do to have the experiences that we had, to even buy the kit that we're talking on, all of those things, it is infinitesimally minute, the chances that this would happen. And yet at the same time, it was perhaps inevitable, depending on what one believes about determinism. All of this may have been written. And
one of the things I've heard a lot, the next 3 years are going to be the vital ones. One of the things I kind of look for is consistency of information, like in Meet the Hybrids, for instance. There's an amazing degree of consistency across different people in different parts of the world who didn't know each other. And I like that, because that helps me to buy into the concept of what is going on. And it really works really well with the Dolores Cannon work, with Stephen Greer and the rest of them. It's kind of nice with that. One of the things I've heard is that these next 3 years are going to be the tumultuous years. This is where change is happening. And I don't know what that looks like, and I don't pretend to know what that looks like. But I do get the fact, and I'm kind of putting this out there because I also know that if in 2 to 3 years' time nothing's happened, then people are going to say, yeah, well, that was deluded nonsense, wasn't it? And I'll say, yeah, it was. I really fell for that one, didn't I? Now, I personally believe something is occurring, something is happening that is changing our environment, changing our world. What is going to be is going to be. I don't worry about it. I just kind of do what I feel is needed to be done right now, and allow people to make their own minds up about whether it's for them or whether it's not for them. But I love this idea of community consciousness. I love the idea of us coming together with an elevated frame of mind, with that, you know, going to those, because I always ask the question, you know, like, you've got the dense emotions, which are going to be fear, stress, anger, greed, control, and on, violence, judgment, or you've got love, laughter, fun, joy, all these kind of like that upper level there, which, that makes life worth living. Now, who would not choose if you had the choice? Now, people don't feel they have the choice. They feel they have to be in fear, stress, and all the rest of it because of where they are in their life. But the idea of coming together with community consciousness to kind of understand there is a bigger universe out there than just us. It's not just humans on Earth all battling out between each other and having division energy and all the rest of it. There's actually a much better way of looking at life, which brings happiness to you personally. But at the same time, as you come together and share that energy, then that in turn kind of accelerates it. And it's a multiple effect, not just 1 + 1. This is, a multiple effect. And I kind of believe that is the way that things can happen, and is the way that I would like it to happen.